Clearwater City Council meeting. If you wish to address the council either in citizens to be heard or on an agenda item, please come up and get a card, fill it out, and turn it into the clerk. I'd ask you now to please stand for the invocation given by Reverend Bob Brubaker from Christ Community Presbyterian, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Oh God, our Father, we thank you for the privilege of coming to a throne of grace to find mercy and help in time of need. And we need your presence here tonight and the spirit of wisdom for your servants here that have served our fair city, and pray that you would give wisdom to the council and bless the meeting with peace and unity. We thank you that you watch over us and care for us and for the privilege of living in Clearwater, Florida. We give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Pastor Brubaker. We appreciate those words. Thank you. Okay, we're going to introduce the dais. To my far right is City Manager Jennifer Poirier. Next to her is Councilmember Kathleen Beckman.
Good evening.
Next to her is Vice Mayor Mark Bunker.
Good evening.
My immediate left is Councilmember Lena Teixeira.
Good evening.
Next to her is Councilmember David Albritton. Good evening. Next to him is our City Attorney, David Margolis, a.k.a. Lefty. He's getting there with that right hand. Okay, we have 3 service awards to start with this evening. We have the 10-year Employee Award. Could we please have Audra Aja from Economic Development and Housing come forward?
Hold on.
Hold on.
We're going to read it.
No, you're good.
We can do it reverse.
Okay, we'll mix it up.
We'll
do this first, knock
Yeah,
it
we'll
out.
do this first. There you go. Congratulations.
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 Oh, that's very nice.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
We get to skip.
Okay. Thank you very much. Congratulations. All right. Next, we have 20-year employee. Please come forward, Gabe Para from Economic Development and Housing.
Gabe began his career with the City of Clearwater on July 14, 2003, as a code enforcement inspector. In February of 2006, Gabe was promoted to Neighborhood Services Specialist. In this role, he led study and public relation efforts in the North Saturn Avenue area to encourage residents and landlords to engage with the city and each other to effect change. The success of these efforts culminated in the creation of the North Saturn Avenue Neighborhood Association in September of that same year. During the Great Recession, changes within neighborhood services led Gabe to his role as housing inspector in 2009. As a member of the Problem Properties Unit, he inspected homes, roaming houses, and apartments to ensure their fitness and safety for human occupancy. In November of 2015, Gabe joined the Economic Development and Housing Department to lead the city's homeless initiative and downtown Gateway revitalization efforts. For several years, Gabe planned and organized the Del Nero Children's Day event at Gateway, coordinated and trained staff for the annual homeless point-in-time count, and represented the city on the Funders Council of the Homeless Leadership Alliance. For the last 3 years, Gabe's work has come full circle. He is able to utilize his inspection background to oversee the construction properties associated with the CDBG-funded Public Facilities Project and SHIP and home-funded homeowner and rental rehabilitation projects. He works with our fund administrators to support their compliance monitoring inspections, conduct Davis-Bacon interviews, and engage nonprofits, developers, homeowners, property managers, and contractors to ensure timely performance and compliance with funding regulations. In addition, Gabe also serves as the city's Hispanic liaison. Congratulations, Gabe, for your 20 years of service with the City of Clearwater.
Congratulations. Thanks for all you do.
Good job. Thank you for all you do.
Got your hands full. Congratulations.
Okay, now it's time for the bi-monthly team award for July and August of 2023. Could I have the Jasmine Fire Crew Station 45C please come forward?
Clearwater fire units were dispatched to reports of structure fire on Magnolia Drive. E45 responded and was told by dispatch that there was a carport on fire behind the address on the initial dispatch. While en route, the large column of smoke and fire was seen while driving down MLK Avenue. Multiple calls were also received from neighbors and bystanders relaying that there was a house on fire, carport, and multiple vehicles on fire, and explosions were being heard. E45 stretched out a hose line down the driveway to find 3 fully involved cars, a carport with fire extension into 2 residential structures, and significant damage to a 3rd structure from radiant heat. A female and male occupant of the 2-story structure suffering from heat damage approached E45 Lieutenant Becker, stating there are 2 kids trapped upstairs in his 3rd residence. The person's home was under extreme heat conditions and the vinyl siding was already melting off. Lieutenant Becker notified command of the reports of victims. Lieutenant Becker then went up the exterior stairs to find an adult male, a juvenile female, and a dog in the upstairs apartment. They stated they could not get out due to the extreme heat. The adult male had in fact burned his hand on the doorknobs, trying to escape on his own. Lieutenant Becker notified command and requested a ladder to the delta side away from the fire. Lieutenant Anthony Gomillion and fire medics Josh Engelberg arrived on the scene, 2nd-story apartment, to assist in the rescue of those trapped occupants. Driver-operator Michael Red Billion brought a ladder to the 2nd-story window on the side where the victims, a child, an adult male, and a family dog, were removed to safety while being shielded from the heat and flames by driver-operator Billion. Fire medic Serpa protected interior crews with a hose line. Medic 45 crew, fire medic Kid, and fire medic Vital instinctively assisted with the hose line upon arrival, and fire medic Matthew Munger, who was the acting driver-operator, seamlessly operated the pump. This was a call where split-second decisions were made within minutes of arriving on scene. These actions, which took 5 minutes once E45 arrived on scene, showed the professionalism and perfect coordination of efforts that made the difference between a tragedy and a positive outcome, and the difference between just doing your job and doing a job well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Congratulations. Good job.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Congratulations to the crew. Outstanding work. We appreciate your efforts, and I know all the citizens do. Great job. Okay, now it's time for Clearwater Sister Cities High School Japan trip presentations. We could have Amber Bryce from Arts and Cultural Affairs. So the coordinator, please come forward. Hello.
Good evening, Amber Bryce, Cultural Affairs Coordinator. I thought I'd give you all a little background on the Sister Cities program and our student exchange before I invite them up to speak. The City of Clearwater has one of the oldest sister city relationships on record. The first Sister Cities program, Sister Cities International, was created in 1956 at the request of President Eisenhower, giving national focus to affiliations between cities in the United States and in other countries. The goal of the program is to promote deeper cultural understanding, international visitation, and hospitality that leads to long-lasting relationships. Clearwater has been sister cities with Nagano, Japan since 1959, making this year our 63rd anniversary. Since 1991, Clearwater and Nagano have participated in a reciprocal high school student exchange program. Each year, the cities sponsor an exchange of 4 students and 1 chaperone, with groups spending approximately 2 weeks with a homestay family in their sister city. Exchange students participate in a variety of activities, including attending classes, team sports, and social outings. These mutually beneficial exchanges have had a positive impact in promoting and nurturing cross-cultural relations. The program was halted in 2020 due to the pandemic, so this was the first time in 3 years the exchange trips have taken place. I want to give a special thanks to the Pinellas County School Board's World Languages Specialist, Pamela Benton, who's in the audience. She's helped the city organize this exchange program for many, many years. We have our wonderful Clearwater resident students here who participated in the exchange this summer, and they would like to come up and give a short presentation about their experience. We have Jamison Carter, Laura Kopek, Lola Rumaliza, Ara Moore, and their chaperone, Anthony Powell.
Can we get someone to assist them with this, please?
There's only one TV that shows.
Powell. We would like to express our gratitude to the City of Clearwater and the Clearwater Sister Cities program for making this trip possible for us. It was truly life-changing for each one of us. We all love traveling, but living with a host family and being able to attend a Japanese high school was a different level of cultural immersion that we had never before experienced. We learned so much about the language and the culture, and we were encouraged to try new things like eating jellyfish and sea slugs in Tokyo. Meeting the mayor of Nagano and representing our city and our country was a truly unforgettable experience. The linguistic and cultural differences that we noticed allowed us to have deep conversations with teachers and students. We developed lifelong connections with people in Japan as well as with each other that have continued even now that we have returned home. This trip made our world seem more connected than ever, and each one of us now has a family and friends in Japan that we cannot wait to visit again. We loved playing for the students in music class and at their chorus concert, trying calligraphy, attending 2 tea ceremonies, and learning to play traditional instruments. We will never forget cheering on our homerooms at their sports festival, sharing about our homes in the Clearwater Room, seeing Zenkoji Temple dressed in yukata, going to karaoke with our host siblings, and all of the amazing moments in between. On behalf of the entire group, I would like to thank you again for this experience. We will cherish it forever. Thank you.
Thank you for going. Glad you could go. Congratulations. Glad you liked it. Glad you liked it. You're welcome. Yes. Glad you liked it. Thank you.
So the next time you go back, remember my rule when I went over there is I'll try anything, just don't tell me what it is. If I don't like it, I won't eat it anymore. Great job. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's a great program.
And then for our second presentation, Clearwater Sister Cities, Inc., or CSCI for short, is a nonprofit organization. They partner with the City of Clearwater in helping find homestay families for our school exchanges, and CSCI organizes cultural activities for local residents, such as festivals, social gatherings, and virtual exchanges with Nagano. They also help facilitate a social evening event when the Japanese delegation comes to Clearwater every 5 years. Sister Cities, Inc. hosts their own student exchange program for middle school students called the Young Ambassador Program. Unlike the high school exchange, this trip is not funded by the city, but by the family of the students and the organization themselves. The middle school students spend 1 week in Nagano with homestay families and 1 week sightseeing in Japan. This year, 3 chaperones and 8 students participated in the exchange. 2 of the chaperones, James Wallace and Cheryl Zawacki Dorweller, along with 3 students, Sydney Adano, Zoe Altis, and Liam Rodenberg, are here to give a short presentation about their experience.
Hi, welcome. First up, I want to say thank you. One of the generous donations from the City of Clearwater was our stylish polos that we wore during the school, so we want to say thank you for the donation, along with the usage of your facilities during our orientations. We'll start with a PowerPoint. Do I press anything? There we go. I'll go back one. This is a little short PowerPoint photos of our trip. Like Amber was saying, we spent 1 week traveling Japan. We actually saw 6 different cities in 7 days, along with 1 homestay in Nagano. We spent 1 week in school there. We attended class for 3 school days. Just like the high school program, we participated in music, art, English, Japanese class, along with traditional ceremonies like the tea ceremony or dressing in yukatas as we walked around Nagano. Represented for our trip are 3 of the 8 students here. Each of them represent different areas of Pinellas County. And each of them would like to give a little short 1 sentence of their journey on the trip. So we'll start with Liam.
Come to the microphone, please, in the middle.
Oh, yes, sir. I'll get out of the way.
Come in the middle.
My name is Liam Rodenbeck, and one thing I loved about this trip is my host family, who's a spirit I'll never forget, and I'm really thankful for that.
Actually, we have a photo of Liam's host family in the 3rd slide right over there. He made a really good impact on them.
Great.
They made a good impact. So, would you like to say anything about, you said something about the cheese.
Hello, my name is Sydney Adano. One thing I loved about going to Japan was trying the new food, and I really love the cheese squins.
Hello, I am Zoe Altis, and I think my favorite, most memorable experience in Japan was going to the Hiroshima Peace Memorial. It had a very lasting impact on me, and I will never forget that experience.
And I, of course, loved meeting the origami master there.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And we look forward to helping host the teachers and students when they do come to Clearwater in the future. So keep us in mind. Thank you.
Look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, little, yeah.
Glad you liked it.
Congratulations.
Glad you liked it.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, son. It's really interesting. Great job. Great job. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, I'm glad you guys had a good time.
And I just would like to close by saying, if anyone is interested in participating in the high school student exchange program or would like to volunteer to be a homestay host family, the information can be found on our website, myclearwater.com, and just search Sister City and all the information will be there.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have an approval of the minutes from the June 15th meeting?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Time now for citizens to be heard regarding items not on tonight's agenda, not on the agenda. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes, and please make sure you've filled out a card and turned it in to the clerk.
Hi there, my name is Mary Ellen Gordon. I am actually a resident of 80 Rogers Street, which is the Prelude 80 condominiums. I'm here to address concerns about the proposed development at 420 to 432 Bay Avenue, which is the property directly next to ours on the north side. You should have received an email with a letter stating the full range of our concerns and questions. It has more details on each of these issues and some others as well. I'd like to start by saying we are not anti-development. We understand the waterfront lot next to us will be developed. The issue is how that will happen. We would really like to know which city agency or elected officials are responsible for enforcing the stated criteria of the downtown development zone goals and the city's Greenpoint 2.0 environmental goals of resiliency, livability, and green building. The question is because this project fails to meet the criteria of both, yet no one has raised a red flag about these failures. Unlike the North Marina District project, which I learned today from the Tampa Bay Times story that I'm sure you all saw, is meeting with pushback from the city planners. So we're wondering why there's a different level of scrutiny for 432 Bay Avenue. Maybe some context will help. Our building is 13 stories. The Oaks Assisted Living Facility just a bit to the north of ours, and the same exact lot where the new building is being proposed, is about 15 stories. The new building is proposed to reach 470 feet into the sky. It will be 2 towers of 35 stories each. It will extend to just 20 feet from the coastline there, which is a natural coastline. It is home to seagrasses, marine wildlife, and water birds. It also includes a protected mangrove area. There is actually no acknowledgement of these fragile ecosystems in the building plan. In fact, the landscaping shows manicured landscaping that goes right around to where the mangroves currently are. The lot will be elevated, and it will come within 5 feet of our north property line. The water runoff will go directly out into the bay and to the north side foundation of our building. But really importantly, the bluffs area upon which they want to build is alive with underground waterways that include rivers and springs. Deep drilling will be required to reach bedrock. I was actually told that by one of the people involved in the city planning side of things. There will be vibrations from that deep drilling. We have enormous fear about what effect that will have on our 48-year-old building's structural integrity. We were told by city planners that developers will request or will provide answers for the questions that the city planners raised, but not until they're actually applying for building permits. I just want to raise these issues, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Someone will get back with you. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I am Sarah Brown Caudell, 77-year-old Clearwater native, 80 Rogers Street, Prelude 80 condo, regarding 42432 Bay Avenue. In my years here, I have seen many different names attached to the various departments and boards in the downtown district. However, I never thought I would see city staff make final decisions on projects without having them go before the now-known Community Development Board or City Council for final review. How did the Downtown Development District in 2018 jump over 2 major roadways and end up on a dead-end Bay Avenue surrounded by narrow streets with no plans to alleviate traffic we have now next to a historical neighborhood without giving proper notice to adjoining property owners? How did this happen and why? These parcels are in the Downtown Redevelopment Planning and Zoning District for redevelopment with no height restrictions, 20 feet from the water, 5 feet from the property line, and all on a natural cove. Why? That cove has a huge wildlife population with manatees, dolphin, and even otters. The assortment of bird life is abundant there. I watched them replant grass beds along that area years ago due to dying off from dredging the paths and building of bridges. It took a long time for the grass beds to recover and keep the beauty that is there today. There is no seawall on these properties, only an uneven, jagged riprap with nice mangroves on the shoreline. Developers will want to dredge that shoreline, square it off, build a seawall, and possibly a dock, a pier, or slips. Do you really want to see this destroyed? Where is your oversight? Clearwater has always had underground springs along our coastline and bluff areas and in the cove itself. The driving of pilings way down into the bedrock could hurt not only the springs, but could cause ground problems with hill slides, possible sinkhole, and damage to surrounding buildings in our area. Some engineers felt that the pounding of pilings on a nearby construction site in Surfside was also a contributing factor in that condo failure. Do we want to chance that here in Clearwater? City Council should look at all the blueprints, especially for drainage and rainfall, with a proposed driveway coming down a hill from Bay Avenue along our north property line. What is going to happen to our property from all the water? Take a hard look at the added traffic for all the surrounding area and the safety of users on the leg of the Pinellas Trail on Turner Street and Bay Avenue. Prelude 80 condo residents want protection from this massive project, notification and oversight by the City Council on any construction project that is proposed for either of these two properties. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening, Councilman. My name is Katrina George, and I reside at 1276 Eldridge Street here in Clearwater. I've lived here all my life. We need your help and assistance. We all know that the environment needs animals to balance our ecosystem. Today, I'm here to talk about the urgent need for changes in the Pinellas County feral cat ordinance because nobody wants to live next door to the crazy cat lady. There were 6 affidavits sent to the animal control from various neighbors on Eldridge Street due to this issue. Because of the county ordinance, unfortunately, we're dealing with the effects of 30 feral cats. We're not on farms. We live in close proximity of our neighbors. I have over $4,800 in cat damage from cat feces, urine contamination, grass destroyed, cars scratched, and more. This ordinance, this is a county ordinance, but I'm shocked that there's no county funds to repair these damages. One resident should not have the authority to make a decision for an entire community. There should be community input. Homeowners and neighbors should have a voice in this matter because everyone's affected. Meow Now and Friends of Stray and Pinellas County government needs to come up with a better system because this is not working. There needs to be a mandatory training for these colony owners to ensure that only responsible cat owners become cat colonies. It's essential to revise this cat feral program. At this point, our neighborhood, where I've lived there for over 30 years, I used to wake up in the morning and be able to smell the fresh air of oak trees in the area, just clean, fresh air. Now the only thing that I smell is cat feces. This is a travesty. We need some checks and balances to this Meow Now program. Animal control is telling us that we should come out, we have to go out and trap cats. Well, if it's a feral cat, you have to catch it 3 times. This is ridiculous. We're totally not against the cat colony program, but there definitely has to be some checks and balances. There's no training for these people when they ordain them as cat colony personnel. There is no limit to how many cats they can have. I don't know if you all are cat owners, but if you ever smelt cat feces, it's the worst thing on the planet. I've done everything. The oils don't work. After a while you trap them, the smell gets in the cage. They don't want to go in the cage. Animal control doesn't want to pick them up. We need some solutions. We need some checks and balances to this program because as a homeowner, we don't have the sanctity to live in a peaceful environment. This has destroyed our homeowners' rights. And as a homeowner, we work hard to gain, to have your property, and you're trying to keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on items not on tonight's agenda?
Good evening, Mayor Ongst, council members, Ms. Poirier, Mr. Margolis, and staff. My name is Rudy Michaelek. I live at 855 Bayway Boulevard on Clearwater Beach. Recently, there was an article in the paper, which I'm sure everybody has read, about bringing civility back into the normal discussion between parties and in various meetings and so forth. And I know that from time to time, people are going to bring forward ideas that may have some conflict with the ideas being proposed and so forth. But we need to do that in a common sense, reasonable fashion and interaction. Therefore, I want to take this moment to personally thank all of you for the service and the hard work that you all put in. I know there are long hours there, sometimes difficulties with some citizens who maybe write too often in the past, but I do want to express my sincerest thank yous for that. Also, in the recent past, I have mentioned the economies having to do with the Bluffs project and the current negotiations that are going on. So again, I'm sure that you saw on the news that inflation is now down to 3%, which is good for the developer. But in the Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater area, it said that inflation was now slightly over 7%, but fueled primarily by housing rentals, which obviously is also very good for the developer. So I share that as part of Mr. Margolis's continuing review and evaluation of that project. And again, I take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for what you do. It is deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Ellen O'Donnell, the president of the Clearwater Lawn Bowling Club. We're a nonprofit that incorporated in 1924, so we're celebrating our 100th anniversary next year. Our historic club has been the site of many major regional and national championships, and it's one of the largest lawn bowling facilities in the country. Unfortunately, there has recently been talk of the city demolishing both our clubhouse and the shuffleboard clubhouse to make room for volleyball, pickleball, and other sports, and to call this proposed new venue the Hub. Apparently, this hub idea resulted from a perception that our current facility is not utilized enough. The city would potentially be spending millions to build the hub in an effort to increase utilization. However, a much lower cost alternative to the hub is simply to let the citizens of Clearwater know that the lawn bowling and shuffleboard complex exists. The city recently let everyone know Coachman Park was reopening. Why not let everyone know that the city also provides lawn bowling and shuffleboard venues? Right now, lawn bowling is the best kept secret in town. The comment we hear most often from new bowlers is something along the lines of, "I've driven past this place for years, but I never knew it was here." In Central Florida, the town of Mount Dora, with a population of only 20,000 people, has a lawn bowling club with over 200 members. 200 members. So yes, lawn bowling is a very popular pastime for people of all ages. And anyone can bowl with us. They do not have to join our nonprofit club. We're asking Clearwater to advertise and market their historic lawn bowling complex, and this will attract new lawn bowlers, and lots of money will not have to be spent on the hub. If, however, the city does want to spend money to add more activities to our club's location, here's an idea on how to do it. This map shows how to utilize open spaces on the east and west sides of the complex so additional amenities can be added without tearing down the clubhouses that have been at that location since 1964. What I have talked about tonight will also be presented at next week's Parks and Recreation Advisory meeting, as well as the public meetings for the 15-year Parks and Recs Master Plan. Thank you for your attention, and I do have handouts for all of you that includes this map and also some other information about our historic club.
The clerk, and she'll pass them out. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else on items not on the agenda?
Good evening. Jason Mastropietro, President of Friends of Moccasin Lake, 1079 Cephas Road. First thing, we had a Friends meeting back on June 21st, and we had several people that I wanted to note that attended. Councilmember Mark Bunker, Art Cater, Sean Beasley, Matt Anderson, and Patrick Rafferty. I want to thank you all for being there. There's a lot of wonderful things that are happening at the park. We've had a reopening a couple years ago. And one of the things that's happened from before the reopening and we had a larger full-time staff there to now, we have one full-time staff member. I know that there's been an additional part-time person that's going to be coming on shortly. But what I'd like to ask for is if you could consider adding a full-time employee as well to there. Lloyd Simmons, who works there, is doing a fantastic job. We have a lot of events that are occurring. The utilization has been going up. The events from my position have been getting better and better, and we'd just like to continue expanding upon that and growing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on items not on tonight's agenda?
Hello, everybody. A little bit about myself. My name is Matthew Zimmerman. I'm a Clearwater native, Navy veteran. I spent 3 years completely homeless, and I've experienced all the homeless shelters in our area: Pinellas, Hope, Safety Harbor, St. Vincent de Paul, and St. Pete. It was only because I started receiving my 100% VA disability pay that I was able to pull myself out. Homelessness is a complex and multifaceted problem, one that cannot be ignored or pushed aside any longer. It is not just a statistic or a number. It represents the lives of our fellow human beings who are struggling, suffering, and in desperate need of our support. On the streets of Clearwater, we witness the stark reality of homelessness every day. The faces of those less fortunate than us reflect stories of hardship, loss, and untold struggles. Each person's journey to homelessness is unique, and there is no single solution to address this plight. However, if we come together as a community, we can make a real difference. First and foremost, we must acknowledge that homelessness affects individuals from all walks of life: families, veterans, the elderly, and those battling mental health issues. Behind every person experiencing homelessness, there is a story, and we have the power to change that narrative. One of the fundamental aspects we need to address is affordable housing. Clearwater, like many other cities in Pinellas County and Clearwater, faces a shortage of affordable housing, forcing vulnerable individuals onto the streets. As a community, we must advocate for these policies that promote the construction of affordable housing units and work with local authorities to allocate resources for this crucial cause. In addition to government efforts, we need the active involvement of nonprofit organizations, faith-based groups, businesses, and individuals. We have laws in Florida here that prevent bans on rent control, which only under extreme circumstances may be avoided, but I think we can all agree the situation could not be more dire. There are also 3,768 homeless children out there right now, almost twice as many adults, yet there are 15,000 vacant homes in our county. We have a power with our voices here. I recently met with the Pinellas County's Continuum of Care in hopes to build a lived experience committee. Councilmember Kathleen Beckman was there. And I was very impressed to see the thought and drive that is going into the agenda. In conclusion, addressing homelessness in Clearwater requires unity, compassion, and collective action. By working together, we can create a city that provides opportunities for everyone, regardless of their circumstances. Let us build a community that extends a helping hand to those in need and shines as a beacon of hope for all. I'd like to extend my availability to any of the council members that would like to learn more from my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Patrick Raftery, 3237 Masters Drive, 44-year resident of the City of Clearwater, and proud to be a resident. Now, I don't want to speak on something that's, I think, on everybody's mind, but we don't speak about it often enough. And the budget process is the perfect place to bring it up. And that is in regards to the staffing shortage that we may have at various operations in the city. I think as part of the council members' review of the budget proposals by each department, you need to be aware of the shortfall of individuals officially authorized to be in those departments. 1 or 2 people missing from a 12-person department is not a problem. 4 to 5 people missing from that same department could be a problem. So I'm going to ask you to focus upon the shortage of personnel in each department as they come forward with their budget proposals. In addition to that, I think there should be an understanding as to why these shortages cannot be filled. Is it a salary consideration? Is it a housing in the area consideration? And ask the department heads to justify why they cannot fill those positions. Perhaps it's something that the council can help them with, but we need these people. We need these people in particular because it will affect the performance of that department. And there are some departments that are very critical to the residents of this city. The first one that comes to my mind is the Planning and Development Department. I consider them to be the watchdogs for Clearwater residents to make sure developers adhere to the ordinances, the law, and the amenities that we want to maintain here in the city of Clearwater. In order to do that, their staff has got to conduct a very detailed study of developers' plans. They need to understand them, and they need to question things that are not clear, and they need to push back to the developers on things that may be harmful to the city of Clearwater. Without the proper staff to do that, perhaps an inadequate study will be done, or they will do it and overlook things that they should be focused upon. So staffing and planning and development is very critical to this city. I understand that when they go before the Community Development Board, staff has recommended something to be approved, and the Community Development Board will simply decide if there's any violation of code or law or whatever that would preclude this from being approved, but in most cases it'll be approved. Therefore, planning and development is the watchdog that watches out for Clearwater residents. Another department is code compliance. We want to keep our neighborhoods looking well. We want our individual homes to look well. We need to have the staff on code compliance who can enforce those codes that need to be enforced. And finally, as we prepare budgets with personnel, I'd like to second Jason's comment relative to Parks and Recreation staffing of Moccasin Lake Nature Park. That is a beautiful 52-acre park that has one full-time employee. Just imagine if that gentleman got sick or left. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else on items not on tonight's agenda?
Hello, my name is Jeff Dennis. I'm a resident of Prelude 80 at 80 Rogers Street. You've already heard from Mary Ellen Gordon and from Sarah Caudell. I'm not going to repeat the things that they have gone over, but I do have some questions, which probably cannot be answered tonight. But in 2018, that property was rezoned, and there was no notification to any of the residents of Prelude 80, which is right next door. My question is, it sort of caught us off guard. On June 20th, last year, we did get a notice from the City of Clearwater, basically letting us know that there was going to be a meeting regarding adding or dividing the property and adding a new parcel to it. A number of us did attend that meeting, and we were not allowed to ask questions. We just sat there and listened, and that was it. Now, June 20th of this year, we get another letter stating that they're going to be building this development, 470 feet high, twin towers. And again, we attended the meeting, and again, we could not ask questions. So I guess I'm confused. I haven't been a resident here long, about 4 years, but I'm representing the people. I am the president of the Prelude 80 Homeowners Association, and I'm representing them. And it just does not seem right to me how this has been conducted and just pushed by. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Someone will get back with you. Anyone else on items not on the agenda?
Hi, Bill Atherton, live at 30 Turner Street, also adjacent to the development at 420 and 432 Bay. I just want to reiterate with everything that's been said, we're also concerned we have a 50-year-old building adjacent to the same property. We're just back a little bit across the parking lot. So just want to hopefully encourage you to look into this, what's been kind of feels like it's been forced through, just as was said before. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Captain Robert Wiltz. I'm an adventurer and also the founding director of the Connect. I want to thank you to the chief of police and everyone else for being here, along with the engine mayor, sir. The importance of thinking about the homeless can never be underscored. I serve to help homeless veterans, as I was myself after COVID, people who are mentally incapacitated and homeless, trafficked individuals, and people who have been kidnapped, as I was, as a homeless individual as well. As I stated, the importance of thinking about the homeless can never be underscored. They are extremely vulnerable people, more so than I think anyone in this room can imagine, unless they've been homeless themselves. The two gentlemen I met at the back of the room, including the person that spoke already, I applaud them for what they said. And I do ask that you think about this, because crime that comes from homelessness, vulnerability, is much greater than what we can expect on a day-to-day basis. It's people who have normal jobs, people who have normal lives and families, car payments, things like that. Vulnerability is what brings the crime to the area, and I want that to be considered, if possible, during these next few months.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Philip Kitchens. I've stood here before, and it seems like I always had the same theme about wanting Clearwater to be better. I'm very happy. 1978 Seaver Drive, lived here for over 30 years. My wife's family's been here in the area for 50 years. I've always lived in great communities like Clearwater. I've always strove, I'm privileged to have parents that one of their phrases were, islands of excellence, a sea of mediocrity. I want that to sink in, because that phrase, I've thought in the back of my mind, and I thought, do I dare come up here and say it? Who are we? I'll leave that one. I listened very carefully to the meeting on Monday, and I was yelling at my TV by the time I was through. Alcohol in Coachman Park shouldn't even have been a subject. The staff hours that were spent on that, I don't know how you can account for that. We don't have drinking in our parks, period. I was surprised during this event. The jazz holiday used to be alcohol-free. They had an entertainer. They were all underage on the pier, and they felt like they had to serve alcohol. Really? Homelessness in communities that don't serve alcohol, they don't have a problem. I don't know if we want to solve the homeless problem, let's control the access to alcohol. I mean, it's one thought. Next, freedom of speech. I don't know where the idea came from for the format for what was stated in that meeting. It's not what I thought that Clearwater stood for this whole time. Every person has a say. Not every person has their way. We have to be nice about it. But to say publicly that I don't have freedom of speech, I'll let that one sink in. I'm a veteran. And I'm offended at that. We'll solve this, but let's never, ever say I can't speak in Clearwater. I'll move to another community. Or I'll put it this way. I was heard as a child. You probably don't have a problem believing that. I was able to get your attention. I will get your attention if I can't do it here. Lastly, Mr. Horn's legacy, I think, deserves more than we're giving him. I think we need to name a street after him in addition to what we're talking. I know his widow is part of this discussion. I know maybe that's too much for them. It's a thought. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Mr. Haluba, and I get under the thin skin of Brian Onks Sr.
No, you don't.
You're welcome.
No, you don't.
So much so that Mr. Onks wants Mr. Margulies to establish rules of civility and decorum in order to speak here. Mr. Margulies is going to attempt to trample on our First Amendment rights. Now, Mr. Bunker, I want to thank you for the statement that you just let it roll off your back. That's as it should be from a public official. Mr. Albritton, you should be against any more rule changes. These decorum rules will have a chilling effect on free speech. Ms. Beckman claims to welcome public comments, but really, only those that match her liberal elitist ideology. Now, some of you refer to the city manager as Jennifer. So, Jennifer, it looks like you blew it on selling the naming rights to the amphitheater. The sound is just another name for noise. Sound of what? Failure? Even according to you, Jennifer, it was uncomfortably hot at the opening, and that's not likely to ever change. Ms. Tejeda, you went to the park 3 times in one day and took a shower afterwards, every occasion. Now, that's one way to maybe use up that 3,000 gallons of water we get charged for every month. We are overcharged not only for recycling, but all of our utilities. The police in most city departments are understaffed. Nadie quiere trabajar para una mentirosa una pera. Except for Mr. Slaughter and Mr. Gandy. And Mr. Onks, if you have something to say to me, I'd suggest you do it in a courageous way and not wait till I turn away.
I love your comedy routine. Keep it up.
Do you have anything to say to me, or are we done? You gonna let me walk away? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Reardon. I actually came here to talk on a couple other things, but I just want to mention the gentleman up here talking about homeless is very courageous. The undercount on the homeless population is a known fact nationwide, because so many people are couch homeless, they're living with other people, but if they didn't have someone in their life to give them shelter, they'd be homeless, or they sometimes live in a car. And a lot of people don't even want to admit they're homeless because it hurts with getting a job. So it is a serious problem, and it's probably undercount. And regarding Cleveland Street, and I talked to Councilmember Albritton today about this briefly, I don't think we're utilizing Cleveland Street properly. I think Cleveland Street should be open in the morning through 6 p.m. Thursday through Sunday, I think we should shut down and have our sections closed. But I think we need to promote the heck out of it, and that's the place to be. And there's a lot of ideas I have. They all have to be run by Mr. Margolis. But we already serve alcohol out on the streets when people are sitting down. So I guess the issue is if they stand up and walk from that table outside that restaurant to another location within that block. But there's a lot of ways to brainstorm, and I would love to sit down, and I'm not going to join any downtown group Mr. Albritton mentioned, but Councilmember Teixeira, I would like to maybe have you think about being the ringleader on this, and I'd like to join the group to have a conversation and brainstorm on how to promote the downtown Clearwater section where we close the blocks off and make it an event. We could have sunrise, go right up to Osceola if we're not out of the, and we don't have to worry about having alcohol, and which we don't want to have in Coachman Park or being by the water, because we're already serving alcohol outside. Okay? And every statute has some wiggle room in Florida. That's a given. And I would like to share some thoughts and some ideas, some things I witnessed in Baltimore growing up, going to even with my fake ID in the early mid-'70s, and how they brought it about in Ybor City. I don't know who remembers Ybor City was closed. The 7th Avenue was closed back in the day, in the 80s. There's a lot of neat things we can do to really make, but the one caveat I'd want to have is any business participating, the property owner needs to give them a 1-year lease. Because this 1-month renewal lease is just total BS. And I know the Scientology organization or members of the church who own those properties are behind it, but they need to get on board, and they need to get a minimum of a 1-year lease. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else on items not on tonight's agenda?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jennifer Haythcock. I'm kind of doing a no-plan because I really wasn't planning on coming up here. But I would like to show this. I found that yesterday at the, across the street from where the Human Services is. And it tells about how affordable Pinellas County is. And it says 1 in every household, 1 in 3. So I'm here to speak up for my part of the homelessness. Wanted to ask you guys about the Advantage Pinellas Housing Compact. This, I believe, was signed by not just this city council, but like the Pinellas County Board of back in May of 2021, to where like Pinellas County will need to increase nearly 1,000 affordable housing units. Well, I guess find out. I kind of want to know where y'all are at with that. And then I'm also here to promote the Pinellas County Continuum of Care, which is a group of many concerned citizens, concerned residents, those with lived experience, organizations, businesses, and government agencies, and their objective is to end homelessness together. I would like to invite those that hear this meeting, please see more information on the Homeless Leadership Alliance website. Someone can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. And then I would also like to say that it was such an honor to be able to watch and be a part of the ribbon cutting for Coachman Park. It is beautiful. I got to see the beautiful Independence Day celebration, sit on the grass and listen to the Colby Kelly and Gavin DeGraw concert for free. What a wonderful place to enjoy by the bay. I hope the unhoused are just as invited to enjoy such a beautiful addition to our city. And if the city can, hold on a second. Now I have a question about how the city can help the homeless. If the city can raise $84 million to build such a beautiful place, I believe that we could raise money, can raise that kind of money for the homeless and build a high-rise homeless shelter / affordable housing with mental health services, because a lot of people are struggling and suffering through no fault of their own, mine and many other stories. So please don't forget to check out the HLA Pinellas County Continuum of Care. Everyone has a right to housing, health care, mental health services, and food, and everyone deserves compassion, dignity, and respect. Thank you for listening, and I hope everyone has a safe and blessed evening. Thank you.
Anyone else on items not on the agenda? Okay, let's move on. We have consent agendas, items next, or any items to be pulled off the consent.
I'd like to take 7.19 off for a brief question or two.
And I need to pull off 7.6 according to the attorney. So, all right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 7, what number was it? 0.1?
7.6 and 19.
19.
So I move that we
approve the consent on 7.1 through 7.5, and then 7.7 through 7.18, and then 720 to 722.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, 7.6, I need to recuse myself according to the attorney. So we'll have this one read and you can vote on it.
Approve a restrictive covenant between the City of Clearwater and the State of Florida Department of State Division of Arts and Culture to allow Ruth Eckerd Hall to receive a cultural facilities grant in the amount of $500,000 and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
This basically is a grant that was given to Ruth Eckerd Hall, and there is a requirement in there that the city has to approve basically an indemnification. Was that the right one? Clause. With that, we discussed it at work session.
Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.6.
Second. All in favor? Aye. 4-0 with Unks abstaining. Okay, 7 point, was it 19?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Award a construction contract to TLC Diversified, Inc. of Palmetto, Florida, in the amount of $7,933,000 for the lift station 16 Pierce Street rehabilitation project pursuant to invitation to bid 20-0008 UT. Approved supplemental work order 3 to Stantec Inc. for construction engineering services in the amount of $200,819, increasing work order from $580,000, $564 to $784,383, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Brown, Engineering Manager for Public Utilities. As I mentioned Monday, this project consists of demolishing the current lift station that's at the western end of Pierce Street and constructing a new, much larger 4.9 million gallon per day lift station that was recommended to us by our wastewater collection master plan. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Questions?
Hi, Jeremy. I had a couple questions. So when I looked back over the legislation text, so it looks like there was a projected cost from the engineer of record of about $4 million in 2020.
It was less than that, but yes.
Or a little, okay. And then 5.3 million last year in June. So a year ago it was 5.3 million cost. And now it's 7.933 million, so almost $8 million. So I mean, it's doubled in 3 years. And so I'm just wondering, is that really realistic? What's going on that's...
Well, let me show you I think attached there should be the engineer's cost estimates in there. If you look at the last one, the 5.4, and you look on the bottom, you see it says market conditions premium. The engineers, so they have a 20% contingency they normally include. The market was getting out of whack around that time. They put a 40% market conditions premium, as in we don't really know what's going to happen out there because of that's supply market, all the different, issues that are going on in the economy. And so we looked into that because we were surprised ourselves, right? And so we actually called, we were surprised we only had one bidder. Is the main thing.
Right, yep.
And then on top of that, to have such a large number, we of course wanted to look into it. And so we asked staff to look out to almost 30 companies in the area. About 15 responded to us just asking hey, why did you not?
Well, that's good to know.
And so the overlying sort of response to us there was a couple. One was the project did not fit their workload, right? There's a lot of construction going out there right now. Another was they're too busy or they're already tied up with larger, longer projects, similar situation. And then also the labor market. Some of them pointed to that they could not provide a competitive bid with the current labor market. And so what we think may have happened is this company that did bid, they do quite a bit of work with us, and we feel as if they probably just felt obligated, hey, we want to make sure we submit a bid to the city. And unfortunately, that was the only bid that we received.
Do we have any indication on those papers then that the increase will go to labor? I mean, it's I feel better if it's going to somebody's paycheck instead of a bunch of supplies.
We can't direct the contractor where to.
I know, but I mean, as far as their expectation, we have no indication of that. Because if one of your responses is the labor market, then I would think, okay, well, maybe they're going to increase their estimate so that they can pay workers to get workers to work for them.
Yeah, well, how we bid these out, and again, in your packet there, let's see, I think after the figure, there's the bid tab, I think it's called in there? You have that available?
Yep.
And so that's how we ask the contractors to bid these projects. We put that out, it's blank, we put in the units and the quantities.
Right.
And then each one of these line items, you see that LS, that's lump sum. And so they fill out a number, they turn it into us, and if they're a responsible bidder and they're qualified, then,
And they're only one.
and they're only one.
They're the only one.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay. And then I had another question on the second page of the on the 2 pages of the legislation text. So this is where we figure out how we're going to pay for this. So it says a second quarter budget amendment will transfer sewer revenue in the amount of $5 million from this northeast plant upgrades improvements. So is that northeast plant upgrades and improvements going to be put on the back burner? Are they not real necessary right now?
Yeah, so well, for starters, that's already happened. That was a typo. We thought we were going to bring this item a little while ago, so that budget amendment has already occurred, is what I've been told by our controllers. But what happens, though, is we fund projects in advance. And as you know, we've had this discussion about resources. Every now and then, we may have to put a project on hold, right? And so in that situation, that money is theoretically freed up to do something different, right? And so that money was reallocated to this project that we're speaking of today. And then during the next budget, we're going to replenish that fund.
Okay.
The northeast funds.
All right. So there's no threat to the northeast plant upgrades and improvements?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I also had similar questions as Councilmember Beckman. Looking deeper, there was a lot of things that I needed to have clarified for me, and I want to thank the staff for being so responsive and so quick today to address my concerns. So thank you for being so responsive. I really needed help wrapping my mind around it, and I received the information I needed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Judy.
That's what we're here for.
And I had concerns as well. After our work session on Monday, I was kind of baffled why you had such a big jump. And I did ask the city manager if I could talk to Richard Garner, who I went by and talked to him today, and he explained to me pretty much what you have said. This is part of a $1 billion upgrade to the sewer system, the 10-year plan. And Richard told me that this particular lift station is being enlarged to take all of the beach. The infrastructure that runs through the park has already been upgraded, the piping and so forth. But, and I just said, as a contractor, or retired contractor, I never seen anything like the last 2 or 3 years with prices going crazy on everything. And I've had projects that have just gone kind of out of sight. So I understand, and I think Richard gave me a good explanation of it, and you filled in a lot of details, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy that we could help.
Any other questions or comments? If not, do we have anyone from the public want to speak to this? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.19.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Before we move to administrative public hearings, there was something I was going to read earlier, but kind of got distracted. So the public is invited to 3 open house meetings to give their input on the future of the city's parks, as someone has said earlier. They will take place Monday, July 24th, 5:30 to 7 at the North Greenwood Recreation and Aquatic Complex, 900 North Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. Tuesday, July 25th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Long Center, 1501 North Belcher Road. And Wednesday, July 26th, 5:30 to 7 at the Clearwater Main Library, right here at 100 North Osceola Avenue. If you can't attend a meeting, there is a survey available at myclearwaterparks.com/masterplansurvey. So please take part. We really would like to have your feedback. Okay, administrative public hearings, item 8.1.
Adopt a millage rate of 5.8850 mils for fiscal year 2023-24. Set public hearing dates on the budget for September 6, 2023 and September 21, 2023 to be held no earlier than 6 p.m. And schedule a special work session on August 7, 2023 at 1:30 p.m. to fully discuss the proposed budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kayleen Castle, Budget Director. This first slide is the key points. The city manager went over this with you on Monday, and everything that's on this slide is also covered in the rest of the presentation. The fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget for all city operating funds, special revenue funds, and capital improvement funds is $724,184,306. This reflects a 9% increase from the 22-23 amended city budget. This slide is a breakdown of that $724 million fund total by fund type. The general fund budget for fiscal year 24 reflects an 8% increase from the current year's amended budget. The fiscal year 24 budget for the general fund includes new FTEs that are proposed, annual wage adjustments, operating expenses for Coachman Park operations. It's the first time of full operating expenses for the park, debt service costs for Imagine bonds, and increased capital funding. The utility funds total, which includes the budget for water and sewer, stormwater, gas, and solid waste and recycling operations, reflects an 8% increase from the current year's amended budget. This increase is primarily due to funding for capital projects in both the water sewer fund and the solid waste and recycling fund. The enterprise funds total, which includes the budget for the operations of the beach marina, the air park, the Clearwater Harbor Marina, and parking, is budgeted at an 11% increase over the current year. This increase is driven by capital transfers in the parking fund for the downtown parking garage project. The internal service funds include the budget for information technology, utility customer service, building and maintenance, fleet and radio communications, and the central insurance fund. The budget for internal service funds reflects a 6% increase from the current year amended budget, and this is due to the increased insurance expenses, increased FTEs and salaries in the general services department, and increased software and maintenance contract costs in IT. Special revenue funds include the Special Development Fund. This fund accounts for restricted revenue sources that are all allocated to capital projects. The Special Program Fund, which is used to account for both revenues and expenditures related to grants and special activities, and our other housing assistance funds. Special revenue funds reflect a 5% decrease in comparison to the current year, and this is due to a decrease in planned penny funding in the upcoming year. And capital improvement funds reflect an 18% increase from the current year. This chart represents the change in taxable property values over the last 11 years. Our 2023 preliminary values, which were received from the Pinellas County Property Appraiser on July 1st, reflect an increase in property values of approximately 11.04%, from $15.2 billion in 2022 to $16.8 billion. The proposed millage rate of 5.8850 mills is recommended for the fiscal year 23-24 budget. This is the same rate as was levied in the current year. Due to growth in taxable values, this proposed rate is 10.27% greater than the rolled back rate. The rolled back rate is the millage rate that will provide the city with the same property tax revenue as was received in the prior year. Using this proposed millage rate, property tax revenues are projected to be $95.2 million in fiscal year 24. This represents an increase of approximately $10.2 million or 12% over the current year. Of the $95.2 million projected, approximately $90.7 million will support general fund operations, and $4.5 million represents the road millage used for maintenance of city streets. Revenues that support general fund operations reflect a net increase of 8%. As discussed on the previous slide, ad valorem tax revenues are budgeted at approximately $90.7 million, which is a 12% increase over the current year. The category of other taxes includes business tax receipts, which is budgeted less than the current year based upon prior year actual receipts. And the all other revenue category is anticipated to increase by 36% in comparison to the current year amended revenues. This category includes building permit fees, fines, interest earnings, and various small miscellaneous revenues. This increase is due to interest earnings projected next year, and also the budgeting for new revenues estimated from the ticket rebate from Ruth Eckerd Hall for concerts at the Sound. This chart also shows general fund revenues by category. Ad valorem taxes is our largest source of revenue at 45% of total. Intergovernmental revenues represent the next largest category at 15%. The categories of utility taxes, franchise and other taxes, and charges for service are all 9% of total. Transfer revenues are 7%, and our smaller miscellaneous revenues account for 6% of total. The general fund expenditures in total reflect an 8% increase across all operations in comparison to the current year. All departments' budgets are affected by annual wage adjustments and insurance increases. The budget for Parks and Recreation is increased by 14% in comparison to the current year, and this is primarily due to the inclusion of all personnel and operating costs associated with the operations of Coachman Park and the improved Cleveland Street. Also included in the Parks budget is new funding for improvements to right-of-way landscaping. The 4% decrease to library is due to a large capital transfer for main library renovations, which was budgeted in the current year. Planning and development is increased by 13% in comparison to the current year, and this is primarily due to the addition of 3 new FTEs. The Public Works Department reflects a 24% increase, and this is due to funding transferred to the capital project for major street projects planned. This pie chart also represents the general fund expenditures by department. The budget for public safety is 47% of the total general fund budget, with the police department representing 29% and the fire department representing 18% of that total. The second largest department is actually the Parks and Rec department, and that's 22% of total general fund expenditures. This chart represents the general fund expenditure budget by category. Personnel costs continue to be our largest expense at 61% of total, and operating expenditures represent the next largest category at 16.5%. Internal service charges represent 11%, interfund transfers 10%, and debt and capital expenditures combined represent approximately 1.5% of total expenditures. A total of 1,891.9 full-time equivalent positions are proposed across all funds for fiscal year 24. This is a net increase of 14.9 in comparison to the amended 23 budget. In this graph, the sand-colored portion represents general fund FTEs, which are budgeted at 1,167.8 positions, an increase of 14.9 positions from the current year's budget. In comparison, the green portion represents all other funds. They are budgeted at 724.1 FTEs for fiscal year 24, and this is the same as the current year. These next two slides detail the FTE changes included in this proposed budget, and they're presented by strategic priority. To support initiatives that prioritize high-performing government, a total of 17.4 positions are being added in the fire department. 3 fire medics are added to better support shift coverage. In Parks and Recreation, we're increasing a part-time staff assistant to full-time. In Planning and Development, we've included a business systems analyst, a senior long-range planner, and a floodplain administrator, all in support of the business process study. And for the police department, the proposed budget includes 7 additional officers to provide dedicated staffing in the downtown corridor. In the beach marina and Clearwater Harbor Marina, an additional marine facility operator is being shared across those 2 funds. And in the General Services Fund, an administrative support manager, licensed electrician, and plumber are all being added. To support initiatives that prioritize economic and housing opportunity, a housing specialist is added to the housing division. To support initiatives that prioritize community well-being, a CRA manager and CRA specialist are being added to support both CRAs. And in public communications, an additional public information coordinator is included in the proposed budget. These new requests total 21.4 FTEs, 17.4 in the general fund, and 4 positions to support other operating funds. Similar to last year, we focused on opportunities to repurpose existing positions to offset these current needs. Due to long-term vacancies, a total of 6.5 FTEs are being eliminated. We are also reclassing a total of 2 parking security positions from the Marine and Aviation funds, moving these to the general fund, now budgeted in the police department, and these 2 positions will work in coordination with the downtown marina staff to provide security patrol at Coachman Park. This reduction and reclass of positions results in a net increase of 14.9 FTEs proposed for fiscal year 24. This slide represents the categorical breakdown of the capital improvement budget for fiscal year 24. Funding for projects for utilities, which include stormwater, water and sewer, gas, and solid waste and recycling, are budgeted at $73.6 million. This continues to be our largest expense at approximately 48% of total capital funding. Significant changes to utility projects include funding for utility replacement, as part of the Fort Harrison and Osceola roadway projects, and increases to existing utility infrastructure projects in line with their master plan. General government projects are estimated at $37.6 million. This represents 24% of capital funding. This includes projects for fire, police, streets, sidewalks, parks and recreation facilities, libraries, and maintenance of city buildings and facilities that operate general government functions. Significant changes proposed to general government projects include additional funding of $1.8 million of general fund and multimodal revenues in the Fort Harrison Road construction project, an additional $1.1 million of general fund revenues for the Public Works project, and there are a few new projects in the general government category. $222,020 of general fund revenues is budgeted for the new Osceola Street project, and $806,000 from the general fund to establish the amphitheater R&R project, $200,000 from the general fund to establish the playground pork program, and $100,000 for the new Moccasin Lake stormwater improvement project. Projects in support of internal service operations are budgeted at $12.3 million, or 8% of total capital funding. These projects support fleet, radio communications, general services, information technology, and utility customer service. The budget for capital expenses for small enterprise funds is proposed at $29.9 million for fiscal year '24. This is to provide funding for capital repair and maintenance of the air park, both marinas, and parking facilities. Earlier this year, you adopted our new strategic plan with these 5 strategic priorities listed here. We've updated the capital improvement plan to align each project category with this strategic plan. This visual represents the funding of projects as they align to eligible priority areas. Of our 18 project categories, all achieve the priority of high-performing government. In addition, 8 categories include projects that strengthen environmental stewardship efforts, and 3 categories support community well-being. As previously mentioned, additional FTEs were also aligned with the strategic plan. This visual represents the net addition of FTEs proposed for fiscal year '24. We have scheduled a special work session as an opportunity for you to further discuss the proposed budget with all departments represented. This will be held on Monday, August 7th at 1:30 p.m. And as I mentioned Monday, if there are specific topics that you'd like discussed, if you'd please let the city manager know as soon as possible so we can prepare any presentations or provide additional information. The action requested of you tonight is to set the tentative millage rate that the city manager, which the city manager has proposed at 5.885 mils, and to set the 2 public hearing dates for September. This information is provided to the county for inclusion in trim notices, which are mailed to our residents in August. Just to note, if you set the tentative millage rate at this proposed 5.885 mils, it can be reduced in September but cannot go higher without a first-class mailing to each resident at our expense. Our first public hearing will be a part of a special council meeting. Actually, it's a separate special council meeting that's been scheduled for Wednesday, September 6th. And the second hearing to adopt the budget is planned as part of the council meeting on Thursday, September 21st. Both of these meetings are scheduled to begin at 6 p.m. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions or comments? Anyone from the public want to speak to this item?
Hi, my name is Nick Carey. I'm an organizer in Pinellas County with Faith in Florida. We're part of the Clearwater Alliance for Housing. And I want to speak in support of keeping the millage rate where it is. Oftentimes cities are always talking about how we don't have enough money to meet a lot of the strategic priorities. I see that economic and housing opportunity is one of the biggest ones for y'all. And so I just want to speak in support of making sure we have as much funds as possible to address some of the housing and homelessness needs that we've already heard about this evening. And I just want to share like a few ideas along with that and the budget. Just in general, like I would love to see housing treated with more urgency, both in the numbers that we see in terms of like actual investment, but also just as a separate breakout, what percentage of the budget is the city spending on housing? I would urge y'all to consider housing as a public good. We talked about community well-being and capital improvements, and I didn't really see housing necessarily reflected in that. And then along with that, to serve our folks, our unhoused population, I want to make sure, recommend that we allocate more funds to social services for homeless folks. So I think right now it's about $250,000. I think you could easily double that with the amount of increases in property values and revenues coming. I would also recommend that you take a look at where those funds are going to specifically. For instance, Safe Harbor has less than a 3% success rate, while you have great organizations like the Homeless Leadership Alliance and the Continuum of Care, who just all share anecdotally working on housing for the last 2 years. They have yet to let me down when I've come across a resident in need. They have staved off evictions, found temporary rapid rehousing for people, and even got people out of domestic violence situations with their connections with CASA. And then just some other general ideas are considering a right to counsel program. St. Pete has been talking about this. Just having a lawyer for a tenant facing eviction has reduced evictions by 40% in places like New York City that have implemented these processes, and just balances the scales. Sometimes it just gives them time to get out of the situation and find a new apartment without having the stain of eviction on their record, making housing even harder. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is George Davis. I'm a merrily retired retail executive in the fashion industry. I had profit and loss responsibilities for international sales in excess of $200 million, working for Allied Stores and for May Department Stores International. I'm here as a member of the Clearwater Alliance for Housing, private citizens group that is working. I know many of you are people, my wife Beth, young Nick, and others have sat with you on a face-to-face, one-on-one. I'm here tonight to urge you, as you consider this budget, to consider the amount of resources that are directed towards working and affordable housing. It is a big problem, and it is only growing, and it needs to be addressed. We are encouraged that everyone has acknowledged the problem, and several of the folks sitting on the dais have indicated support to elevate this to one of the top priorities in this 23-24 budget consideration. The HUD numbers indicate that they're only 13% below their poverty line in Pinellas County. But those numbers are based on governmental figures from 1961 that have been extrapolated through calculating inflationary rises. The more accurate count is the ALICE count that United Way did and studied. The difference is that of that 13% below that would qualify for housing assistance in Pinellas County, the ALICE shows that there are 32% of the population in Pinellas County that are below their criteria for housing assistance. There's a lot of strength in the income for the city. This is an 8% increase this year on top of almost a 10% increase last year. The money's there. The problem with affordable housing is much more complicated than just the city handing out money. Coding, ADUs. We passed the ADU where people could apply and build them. Excuse me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Anyone else on this item?
This 7.5 consent agenda, but I talked to you about today, Ms. Boyer, I'll call you about or email you about my 50-50 idea with the Phillies that I may not mention to Mayor Ongst. I don't know, we're out on Drew Street. But regarding budget, and you're going to love me for this, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years
State your
ago.
name for the
Oh,
record.
Mike Reardon, Clearwater. Perception is reality, and I know we're keeping the millage rate the way it is, but everyone knows if you had your home long enough, your taxes are going up because property values are going up. I think it goes a long, long way when people look on the news or read in the paper or see online, Clearwater lowered their millage rate. And I think last time it was $1 million. Maybe Ms. Beckman remembers. It was like and someone said, well, it's only $7 a year or $7 a month or whatever it is if you're escrow or pay your taxes. But it's a reality that people know property values are going up. We just built our $84 million park and we borrowed $30 million or whatever. We're looking to negotiate with the Phillies and they're going to have a big ask. It's going to be spread out over, different entities. But I really think it goes a long way when property values are going up so fast, which is good if you own a house or a property. But if you're a landlord with properties, you don't get a 3% cap, you get a 10% cap, okay? So your property, so now you got to raise your rent on your renters. And not as a hard fact, but a lot of people who rent, they rent because it's a necessity. It's not a choice. A lot of people rent out of a choice because they don't want to be tied down to a home. And their rent is often as high or higher than a mortgage. I mean, it's pick your poison, I guess. But I really think we should lower the millage rate a teeny bit. I don't know how to explain it. It's when people see, hey, Clearwater lowered their millage rate. They didn't roll it back to what the rollback was. It was like, a ton to get it. But just a little bit, take a couple million off the budget, and I think that's the way to go, as opposed to say, oh, we're going to keep the millage rate the way it is. But, oh, your property went up whatever percentage, so your taxes are going to be much, much higher. Not to mention, and my insurance just went up. I mean, I'm lucky. My insurance is dirt cheap because I got full wind mitigation, and my house is built out of a block inside and out. So my insurance is dirt cheap. But percentage-wise, it just went up 25%. But if I didn't have full wind mitigation, my insurance would be about $4,000 more a year. So anybody that doesn't know anything wind mitigation, get your house full wind mitigation. Best investment you'll make if you're going to keep your home. But I really think we should lower the millage rate a teeny bit, even if it's just $1 million or $2 million off the total budget. And I think that's the way to go. I don't think we should just say, hey, we're keeping it the same, but, anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reardon. Anyone else on this item? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Let's take a very short recess. Welcome back to the July 20th Clearwater City Council meeting. We are going to resume administrative public hearings with item 8.2.
Approve the City of Clearwater's fiscal year 2023-2024 annual action plan, which is the fourth action plan of the fiscal year 2021 and through fiscal year 2024-2025 consolidated plan to implement the goals and objectives set forth in the consolidated plan and authorize the appropriate officials to enter into agreements with HUD and organizations approved for funding, together with the authorization to execute administrative adjustments to same.
I think that is the longest one tonight, so you're welcome, Rose. Denise Sanderson, Economic Development and Housing. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as stated in the agenda item, this is the 2023-24 Annual Action Plan and is indeed the fourth annual action plan of the 5-year consolidated plan. The creation of the consolidated plan and annual action plans are required by HUD of all jurisdictions receiving one or more of 5 different federal funds. City of Clearwater is a recipient of 2. They are CDBG and Home. And while the 5-year consolidated plan, or CON plan as we often refer to it, serves as a framework for identifying housing and community development priorities that align with the funding source regulations, the annual action plan provides summary of activities for the use of federal and non-federal funding sources. That is the SHIP funds, which is our state funds, of course. These will be addressed to, these are used to address the priority needs and goals identified in the consolidated plan. So the AAP is a lengthy document. It's approximately 68 pages in length, and it has another 20 or more pages and attachments. And rather than review the entire document with you today, I'll just hit on those important points. Firstly, the process of the creation of the document begins with identifying anticipated sources and uses of funds. For sources, we look at anticipated receipt of program income, often derived by repayment of loans, carryover funds from previous years, and I should note that some of these funds may already be encumbered, but until they are dispersed, they will show up here as available funds. The expected entitlement funding, so CDBG entitlement, is expected to be $913,337, which is a slight increase. The home funds is expected to be $532,649, which is an increase as well, albeit smaller. SHIP, though it's, we pull this into this plan as a reference, and you'll see budgeting for that as a pretty significant increase of $1,365,854. In total, of all of these sources available for fiscal year 23-24, we estimate this is just over $11 million. So part of the process for determining the use of funds begins in January when we issue a call for applications from nonprofit organizations. Applicants have 30 days to submit a qualifying application for funding used for public services or public facility improvements, microenterprise, and a couple of other things. A review process follows in May, and in May, the Neighborhood and Affordable Housing Advisory Board made recommendations for funded projects. Those recommendations get pulled into this annual action plan, and you'll see them listed in the document on page 26. This year, we received 22 qualifying applications, 8 for public services, 8 for public facilities, 2 for homebuyer education, 2 for processing and purchase assistance loans, and 2 for microenterprise activities. For other uses, we look at trends and pipeline projects. What do we have in the works? What do we see coming? So funding for all is summarized as follows. $1,149,664 to public facility projects, 8 projects including some TBD for projects we may receive throughout the year, or infrastructure projects. $136,998 to public services projects. That reflects the 15% cap imposed on entitlement funding. Entitlement funding is capped at 15%. That is the only source of funding we can use for these types of projects. And as that $913,337 is the amount, $136,998 is 15%. Administration is funded at $405,016, and that's used for salary, benefits, and operating expenses of the housing division staff. $388,352 is allocated to economic development activities. These activities are limited to businesses or business support organizations that serve a low-mod income clientele or are located in a low-mod income area as defined by HUD. Housing activities are funded at $8,711,289, or 79% of all funds available. These activities include creation and preservation of rental housing or owner-occupied housing, down payment assistance, tenant-based rental assistance, a required set-aside for Community Housing Development Organization, or CHODO, for the production of low-income housing. Separate but related is home buyer or homeowner education and counseling at $50,000. And you'll also see our budget has some set-asides for property acquisition and demolition. The Neighborhood and Affordable Housing Advisory Board met on July 11th and recommended unanimously for council approval. Since presenting this plan on Monday, a citizen public comment was received regarding housing rehabilitation. And though the plan included 2 projects budgeted for rental and homeowner-occupied housing construction and rehabilitation, the descriptions of the planned activities under those projects did not expressly reference rehabilitation. The oversight's been corrected and addressed in the latest version to reference both construction and rehabilitation in the planned activity descriptions under those 2 projects. Tonight's agenda includes the latest version, which is dated July 18th. So meeting minutes of tonight's public hearing, as well as the public hearing at the NAHAB meeting on July 11th, and any additional public comments received will be incorporated into the attachments before submittal to HUD on its due date on or before August 15th, and the plan goes into effect on October 1. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments on this item? Yes.
Hi Denise, thank you for that presentation. I had just a couple of follow-up questions from Mondays. So if we're looking at the recommended council allocations page, which is like the 3rd attachment with all the numbers and the columns. So I had just a general question about, and this came into my head as you went through things, why have you included SHIP funding on this document that really is about federal HUD funding?
It's a great question. So it is included as well in our consolidated plan, and because the SHIP funding is used to achieve the national objectives as identified by HUD, we're required to bring it in.
Have you ever thought, I'm just speaking for myself, it might be easier for me to understand if I look at a spreadsheet document that is, this is all just federal funding, and I can look at that, and then I can look at, isn't SHIP and SAIL state funding?
We do not receive SAIL funding,
Okay.
but that is managed by Florida Housing Finance Corporation.
So we have SHIP funding?
Correct.
And that's the only funding we're getting from the state?
Correct.
So that could be its own page, I think. I mean, for me, I'd like to, maybe I can just pull it out and cut and paste it somewhere else, but I think for me, it's important to look at what we're getting from the federal government and how we're spending that and what those restrictions are, and then what we're getting from the state. Because this report is for HUD only, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so HUD doesn't care about our SHIP column.
Well, they do insofar as they want to make sure that we're addressing all national objectives. And we can do that with HUD. So for instance, you'll find homebuyer education and counseling is funded again this year by SHIP instead of by our CDBG and home, but that is a national objective, part of the national objectives.
Okay.
So that's, albeit a minor example, there is benefit to including it here so that HUD gets a perspective of the broad approach to addressing all of the national objectives identified in the consolidated plan.
Do they knock us down points or something if we don't include, so it's just
I don't know, but
a courtesy to give them the full picture?
I am not actually certain. That's a good question. I don't know if we're required to include SHIP. I believe that we must be because our consultant always makes sure that it's in there.
Okay.
But couldn't cite the regulation.
Okay. I mean, I'm wondering if the money we get from the federal government, they look at how we're meeting whatever goals that we have.
Right.
So that's why we include that SHIP in there.
And the Fed funds are entitlements, so they're formula allocations.
And that's where our PIT counts and things like that?
Pardon me?
Our point-in-time counts, all of our counts?
I believe that really affects the Homeless Leadership Alliance, their funding. I don't think it really has anything to do with ours. Ours is both population and our low mod income areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I had a question, and I asked you this on Monday, but I just wanted to make sure I understood clearly. On the first column about public facilities and infrastructure improvements, that's where a majority of those CDBG funds go, right? 85%. Or, well, no, less than that, because you've got pull out for administration and then pull out for public services.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. So
But far more than 85% because carryover funds from prior year goes in there.
Okay, but per year, it's, okay. And then, so we had the to be determined public facilities projects and to be determined infrastructure projects. I had asked about that large carryover of over $500,000.
Yeah.
And am I correct in saying, so I asked you the question about, did everyone who applied up there receive full grant, whatever they asked for. And I think you said you thought they did.
Well, because we capped it at $90,000.
Right, and so that's part of the follow-up. So
We did look, of those 8 that we received applications for, 6 of them said that their projects are larger than the request.
Okay.
So we certainly hope that we'll be able to increase that funding from that TBD line item that you see there.
Okay. So you said you certainly hope that we can, I mean.
Yeah, well, I presume that what their project is are all eligible. I haven't actually looked at it, but they've all indicated they have greater need than what they requested.
Okay, so do you think that once this is approved and it goes into effect October 1st?
It does.
That we can call these, well, we could even call these people up pretty much now?
We can and we
say,
are,
you're
yeah.
okay, all right, good. Do you anticipate that you're gonna kind of deplete that $500,000?
And we need to, yes, we need to do that. So everything that's identified in that public facilities bucket, if you will, $1,149,664, the intention is to spend every dime of that on public facilities projects.
In 2024?
Correct.
Okay.
23, 24, yep.
Is there gonna be a call for more applications, or is it just the ones who applied earlier?
There likely will be a call for more because we do have carryover in there. The first look is those projects that we're funding now in this plan is to make sure that their projects get fully funded up to $180,000. That is our cap.
And that's just what we set?
Well, there's reasons for that. Once you go over $200,000 in spend, there's a whole host of other regulations that come into play, and neither us nor the public facilities nonprofits really are interested.
Okay.
And then, it gets a little more onerous after all of those things, so.
Okay, that makes sense. That's great. Well, that'll be good news for our community partners. I mean, they're going to be thrilled, I would hope, right?
I suspect they will.
Yeah. And, I mean, why would they not? You get a phone call that says, we have more money. And then on the last horizontal line down here under new construction rehab, the tenant-based rental assistance, do we have a rental assistance? So for first month's, last month's, down payments, applications, all that, and are we going to have one? I mean, so do we have one now, and has it been utilized?
We do not have tenant-based rental assistance program. I don't know if we've had one. Certainly not in my tenure, we've not had one. But I think years and years ago, we got funding for tenant-based rental assistance, and we ran that program. The program that we're proposing now is a contract with Clearwater Housing Authority to do first and last, or first security, whatever it is, no more than 2 months rent to support their Housing Choice Vouchers program. So those they have a lot of vouchers, and need to get them out into the community, and one of the challenges is first and last. So this program is specifically designed for them to be able to utilize the vouchers that they can't currently utilize.
I thought one of the bigger challenges was we didn't have landlords that accepted vouchers. First of all, people don't like to accept vouchers. They like to get rent from someone who doesn't have a voucher. But I thought it's not necessarily a person can't come up with first month's, last month's, whatever, but that I can't find a landlord to take my voucher.
What we hear is that landlords are reluctant to be involved in the voucher program because of delayed payments. So getting first and security in the form of tenant-based rental assistance, it's hoped that that will mitigate that, because there's always that delay on the front end when family or individual is first placed in that housing choice location.
Can we think about, did the Neighborhood Affordable Housing Board talk about incentivizing landlords to take vouchers in our community? That could we use some of these funds that way?
I don't recall if that was a discussion at the board, and I don't know if we could use funds to do so.
Like we can double the security deposit for you if you take a voucher from a Clearwater.
I'd have to check regulations on all the funding sources to see if there's any limitations on it. I don't know of any off the top of my head. Chuck stuck around because he loves to be entertained, and he may know the answer to that. I don't.
I think that's a problem countywide is finding landlords to take vouchers, and if we could use some of those funds to incentivize landlords to take vouchers, and if we had a landlord liaison, or we use the landlord liaison, that I guess we're sharing with Largo through the HLA to identify good landlords who will work with our Clearwater residents to find, housing, rental housing here.
I'll mention as well, and so, for the good of you all here, we've not talked about this previously in public. CDBG CV and Home ARP are not part of this because they're not one of those 5 federal programs, and yet they're still federal funds. So do keep in mind, we have these other pots of money, and of course we have ARPA as well, being used for other things, but the Home ARP program, we're going through a substantial amendment. That's a 2020-2021 allocation. We're going through a substantial amendment to reprogram about $891,000 for supportive services, and that will be allocated to nonprofit organizations. And what you're suggesting is, in part, what those funds are intended to do. So there's a number of different types of supportive services that may be funded under that program, but housing navigation, housing liaison, and legal services are a part of that.
Good, that's great. And so CDBG CV is Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Special, right? And they've got to be used by a certain amount of time.
And it has to be tied to a COVID impact, although homeless or those at risk of homeless are considered, because of the threat of transmission of virus, they are automatically a qualifying population.
And same thing with Home ARPA funds that are.
That has a different set of rules, but you could largely use them for similar things.
Okay.
That is not a coronavirus-connected funding.
Okay. So we have $891,000 for supportive services to nonprofit organizations.
You will be hearing about that in a couple of months with a substantial amendment. We cannot fund anything until you all get the plan as part of the HUD process.
Okay. So this is a whole lot of money going out for a whole lot of services, and you've got the staff to handle it and get it out quickly. And
so as you saw in tonight's budget, we do have a request for 1 additional FTE. Last year you approved a request for a real estate coordinator. Dylan joined us in January, and this budget also allocates 70% of his time to Affordable Housing Division. So a lot of what we do, of course, is real estate transactional. That's how we build homes, multifamily and otherwise. And so utilizing Dylan in that capacity will be significantly helpful as we move forward.
Okay. Will he use some of his time for rental as well as, courting development?
All real estate
and all that?
transactions.
Any real estate related to affordable housing options?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you for explaining that. I think that's really good news. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else on this item? Anyone from the public want to speak to it? Not, do we have a motion? I'm sorry.
Move to approve item 8.2.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 8.3, please.
Approve the annexation initial feature land use map designation of residential urban RU and initial zoning atlas designation of a low, medium density residential LMDR district for 1221 Sunset Point Road, and pass ordinances 9697-23, 9698-23, and 9699-23 on second reading.
Good evening, Gina Clayton, Planning and Development. This property is located on the south side of Sunset Point, just east of Douglas, and annexation for this property was approved on first reading several months ago. Second reading was delayed because they were constructing the single-family home in the county. That home has been completed, so now we're back before you to start finalizing the annexation, and tonight is second reading. And we'll need to do a third reading at your next meeting. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? Anyone from the public who would like to discuss this item? Do we have a motion?
Okay, move to approve agenda item 8.3.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
I just have to read the title before it's voted on. It really doesn't matter what sequence. It doesn't really matter if it's before or after the motion, as long as it's before.
You guys keep throwing me curves here. You're pointing this way and that way. I'm like, okay, he's rounding third. Slide.
So we do have 3 ordinances associated with this. We have ordinance number 9697-23 up first, which is an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the south side of Sunset Point Road, approximately 385 feet east of Douglas Avenue, whose post office address is 1221 Sunset Point Road, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date. Next up is ordinance number 9698-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real property located on the south side of Sunset Point Road, approximately 385 feet east of Douglas Avenue, whose post office address is 1221 Sunset Point Road, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential urban, RU, providing an effective date. And finally, we have ordinance number 9699-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the south side of Sunset Point Road, approximately 385 feet east of Douglas Avenue, whose post office address is 1221 Sunset Point Road, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential, LMDR, providing an effective date.
Okay, I think we have a motion and a second. Is that correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 8.4, please.
Approve the annexation initial future land use map designation of residential urban RU and initial zoning atlas designation of low medium density residential LMDR district for 1219 Sunset Point Road and pass ordinances 9700-23, 9701-23, and 9702-23 on second reading.
This property is located beside the property you just discussed, same exact circumstances, and we're recommending approval.
Any questions or comments? Anyone from the public want to discuss this?
Ordinance number 9700-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the southeast corner of Sunset Point Road and Sylvan Drive, whose post office address is 1219 Sunset Point Road, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date. Next up is ordinance number 9701-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real property located on the southeast corner of Sunset Point Road and Sylvan Drive, whose post office address is 1219 Sunset Point Road, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential urban RU, providing an effective date. Finally, ordinance number 9702-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the southeast corner of Sunset Point Road and Sylvan Drive, whose post office address is 1219 Sunset Point Road, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential, LMDR, providing an effective date.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve agenda item 8.4.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. 8.5, please.
Approve the annexation initial future land use map designation of Industrial Limited, IL, and initial zoning atlas designation of Industrial Research and Technology, IRT district for 1786 North Hercules Avenue, pass ordinances 9681-23, 9682-23, and 9683-23 on first reading.
Gina Clayton again. This property is located on the west side of Hercules, south of Calumet. And the site is occupied by some contractor offices, and the owner is requesting annexation in order to receive sanitary sewer and solid waste services. Staff is recommending approval. The property is contiguous to city boundaries and will not have any adverse impacts on city services. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. I would point out the site the use is consistent with our code, but there are a lot of non-conforming site conditions with the property, so they will be allowed to repair and maintain it. Upon annexation, the property will be designated industrial limited and zoned industrial research and technology. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Anyone from the public want to speak to this item?
Ordinance number 9681-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the west side of North Hercules Avenue, approximately 200 feet south of Calumet Street, whose post office address is 1786 North Hercules Avenue, Clearwater, Florida, 33765, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date. Next up is ordinance number 9682-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real property located on the west side of North Hercules Avenue, approximately 200 feet south of Calumet Street, whose post office address is 1786 North Hercules Avenue, Clearwater, Florida, 33765, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as Industrial Limited, IL, providing an effective date. Finally, we have ordinance number 9683-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the west side of North Hercules Avenue, approximately 200 feet south of Calumet Street, whose post office address is 1786 North Hercules Avenue, Clearwater, Florida, 33765, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as Industrial Research and Technology, IRT, providing an effective date.
Have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Now, 8.6 is to be continued to August 17th, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, second readings, public hearings.
I can go ahead and read those right now. We have ordinance number 9638-23, which is an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, making amendments to the Clearwater Comprehensive Plan by amending the recreation and open space element to provide for a new parks and recreation facilities impact fee, certifying consistency with the city's comprehensive plan and proper advertisement, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Any questions or comments? Do we have anyone from the public to speak to this? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve item 9.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. 9.2, please.
9.2 is ordinance number 9639-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the Community Development Code by replacing Chapter 54 in its entirety with a revised Chapter 54, creating a new Parks and Recreation Facilities impact fee, providing for Section 54.01 purpose, Section 54.02 definitions, Section 54.03 applicability, Section 54.04 calculation of impact fees, Section 54.05 method and timing of payment, Section 54.06 use of funds, Section 54.21 through 54.25 reserved, Sections 54.51 through 4.55 reserved, Appendix A, Article 15, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Any questions or comments? Anyone from the public like to speak to this item? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 9.2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Thank you. 9.3, please.
9.3 is ordinance number 9687-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the operating budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, to reflect increases and decreases in revenues and expenditures for the general fund, special program fund, solid waste and recycling fund, and air park fund as provided herein, providing an effective date.
Any questions, comments? Anyone from the public like to discuss this? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 9.3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. 9.4, please.
9.4 is ordinance number 9688-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the capital improvement budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, to reflect an increase of $1,087,961, providing an effective date.
Any questions or comments? Anyone from the public like to discuss this? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 9.4.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, unanimous. Thank you. City manager reports.
Appoint an individual to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with a term to expire July 20, 2027. Council members, in your agenda packs, you have applications for Angelica Lonesome and Patricia Dalton to replace a vacancy created by a long-serving member, Lisa Tuttle.
What's your pleasure?
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
I think they're both great candidates. On the one, they have the same zip code, so that's neutral. And then regarding Angelica, she has a degree in public policy with a big project involving green space, but Ms. Dalton also has extensive experience and diversity of boards and is very involved. So they're both candidates, and I support either one.
Anyone else? That was extremely helpful.
Just pointing out
Little
the
levity.
pros.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I would, this is a little tough for me because I know both of these women. I would say that, Pat Dalton would be a great addition. She knows our community. She's in our parks consistently. She volunteers regularly at Moccasin Lake, which is one of my favorite parks. She's a teacher. She knows the importance of children's ability to have access to parks and programs, and she's been an advocate for our community. She really is a strong candidate. She and I are both members of the Clearwater Community Women's Club as well. I will say about Angelica is that, as Councilmember Teixeira said, she has a degree in public policy, and she did her capstone project on green space and parks in our community. The one thing I think is important about Angelica is she has a toddler. She has a young child that's using our parks, growing up in our parks, and it's just, I think it's important to have a young parent's voice on a board. It's so rare that we get people under 40 on some of our advisory boards that meet in the middle of the afternoon. Now, I hope Angelica is able to, fulfill that commitment. But I would lean just a little more towards Angelica because of her, because she's got a child and a little different experience with our parks right now, having children who use it.
Okay, any other comment? Yes, sir.
Well, two great people. One seems to be older and had more experience with things and dedicated to the community. But I agree with you. Angelica seems to be younger, and I was looking at her zip code. She's got a 33784. I don't think I've ever seen that on.
I think that's a typo. I thought it was 664. I think there's a typo.
Well, anyway, I still kind of lean toward her because of her youth, and that's kind of where I'd lean, is to give her a chance to be on the advisory board.
Yes, sir.
I'll go along with Angelica.
Okay, do we have a motion? Do we need a motion?
Mark, sorry.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
Move to approve item 10.1.
What's the name?
And the name?
I need her name in the motion.
Angelica Lonesome.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. And to the other candidate, please keep applying. You obviously are well qualified, and we appreciate your application. 11.1, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. We discussed this item on Monday. Happy to answer any questions. This is the resolution bringing us up to speed with CWA and the bargaining unit. But happy to answer any questions, and if not, be happy to read the resolution now.
Any questions or comments? Anyone from the public want to speak to this item?
Resolution number 23-10, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, formally recognizing the Communications Workers of America, Local 3179, as the exclusive bargaining representative of the employees proposed for inclusion in the bargaining unit, providing an effective date.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 11.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. 11.2, please.
11.2 is the item that council directed the preparation of regarding the salaries. This is ordinance number 9692-23. It's an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, relating to salary increases for the mayor and council members, amending section 2.263, subsection 1, Code of Ordinances, providing an effective date.
Any questions or comments on this item? Anyone from the public wish to speak to this item?
Good evening. I know it's been a long meeting, so I'll keep this brief. Philip Kitchens, 1978 Seaview Drive, Clearwater, Florida. A lot of the discussion I've heard concerning this item goes to one statement. Never jump a wide chasm in two jumps. It's taken us a long time to get to this point, and I'm hearing a lot of people say it's not enough. So I think if we want to get good candidates, we really need to get more money on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this item? Any questions or comments from up here? Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 11.2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No? Okay, 3-2. 2 with Councilmembers Beckman and Vice Mayor Bunker opposing. All right, thank you very much. Time now for closing comments. We'll start right to left.
Can it start from me? I think we'll all be kind of similar, but I'll go first. So, first of all, I wanted to say welcome to our new Assistant City Manager, Dan Slaughter. It's a little transition to go from Chief Slaughter to Mr. Slaughter, Dan. It's great to see you in this new role, and I'm looking forward to working with you, and I'm really happy you're part of our leadership team. I really am. But the most important closing comment is to say how wonderful it was to be part of the grand reopening of Coachman Park earlier this month. We were lucky that the weather cooperated and that there wasn't rain during our 7-day multiple events extravaganza, but there was beautiful sunshine, and of course there was some record-setting heat. But there is profound gratitude and appreciation, and a heartfelt thank you goes out to all of the Clearwater employees who contributed to our grand opening. From police and public safety to solid waste, parks and rec, communications, planning, parking, neighborhoods, every single department played a part in either the construction of or the opening of our beautiful new park. Your hard work and dedication deserves applause, and please know it does not go unnoticed. I am incredibly proud of our city and the work that our city employees do each and every day, and I know our entire region is impressed with the transformation happening here in Clearwater. So I wanted to thank all of our employees for working so hard to make this happen.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Well, I certainly agree with all of that. It was incredible to be there at the park on opening day, cut the ribbon and see the people walking down the grand staircase for the first time, kids playing on the splash pad. I'm an emotional person, so I actually, got choked up a little bit watching people having fun in the park. And the sound was a great success. Mr. Haluba mentioned earlier that our city manager may have dropped the ball on naming rights, and that's not true at all. We've got some people that are interested, and I think we're going to see a lot of money coming in from that. And I would ask that from those funds that we get another person out at Moccasin Lake. One person to run that entire park is a little crazy. And it's an absolutely wonderful place to visit if you haven't been there. Thank you.
Thank you. You next?
Yeah, I actually wrote it down because I might get emotional and I don't want to ramble. But I remember very clearly around 10 years ago, I sat in a conference room with a dozen people or so, and we were there for one reason, and that was because we didn't want to give up on downtown. And we went around the table, describing how we felt about downtown and how we perceived it, and things were said like ghost town and dead and sad. And then we went around again talking about what we thought was going to work. And when it came to my time, I described it as, when I was at my desk, I would actually look up every time somebody walked by because it was that rare. It was an event to look up because someone walked by. But then when it came to the person next to me to my left, Mr. Buffman, he started describing his downtown. And he talked about music being part of the identity, having an amphitheater in the water park, and he talked about the bluffs and the park. And I was simply captivated. But I was also overwhelmed by the hurdles that we faced. And it seemed so daunting going through all the legal steps that we had to go through. And throughout the years, and there were many people who worked very hard to make this dream a reality. And we all seemed to take turns encouraging each other when some of us wavered. I must admit there were times that I faltered, times where I questioned myself and questioned whether I can overcome these challenges with my fellow citizens, especially when surrounded by so many naysayers. So you can imagine my joy the last week of June when I saw and heard things for the first time. Multi-generational families sitting on a blanket while the children kicked around a soccer ball. A group of athletic 20-year-olds gracefully rollerblading down the bluff. And Mr. Pena proudly showing his family his craftsmanship of the Coachman Park sign. It warmed my heart to see the excited and hear the excited laughter and shrieks from the children in the splash pad, young mothers calling out to their toddlers to be careful, and even overhearing a teenage boy shyly approach a girl to tell her his friend thought she was cute. These sights and sounds were new, and it was beautiful. But the memory that will forever be etched in my heart was the way that I felt listening to the song Proud to be an American while watching the 4th of July fireworks and looking over and seeing thousands of people in our downtown. It was a special moment that I will bring to my deathbed. So I want to thank every single person, and there are many, who never gave up, who refused to back down and forged ahead. Together we realized what many thought was impossible. Downtown, the heart of our city, has been revived, but we are not done yet. So let me end with a quote from Harry S. Truman. America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, and unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. Good night.
Thank you.
Well, all I gotta say is, welcome Dan Slaughter on board. I know that I'm excited to see that you're gonna be joining the staff here, helping out our city manager. I'm gonna say that probably I have been working on the dream of Coachman Park probably the longest. And it was a dream that kind of, I didn't think was really going to happen, because it started all the way back with ULI. And, you know, we hit a lot of pitfalls on the way, but this last month when we opened, it's just, and everything was done great. The park was finished on time. They opened it with really no bugs to speak of. And I can tell you that the 4th of July really hit home for me, because I looked down on the green from the sound, and I couldn't see any grass. I mean, that green is like 2 football fields. It's huge. You really don't know it unless you go down there and you see the vast expanse that is. It's completely full. And I don't know what our count was, but I can almost bet we had 20,000 people there watching the fireworks. And the music was great. They had it pumped into a stage in the front of the green for everybody else that wasn't in the, inside the music venue. There were people having fun. I walked all around the park during that event, and people were just having a great time. It was hot, but there were lots of kids splashing away in the splash pads and people all over. And I looked up at Water's Edge, and I could count almost everybody in those had their lights on and were out on their balconies enjoying it as well. So kudos to staff. I'm glad we had the wherewithal to know to do an extra special event for this, because it's really the culmination of a decade of planning. And I thank the voters of Clearwater to pass that referendum that was necessary and get this thing done. So thank you very much. I'm proud that I can tell my kids and my grandkids what we've done, and they can enjoy it in their life here. So with that said, that's it.
Thank you. I had nothing to do with this one, but I dreamed about this in 2000 when we had a referendum that failed. So I've been waiting a long time myself. I talked about an email on Monday. I'm going to read this because I think it needs to be read into the public, if you would just bear with me. I hope this email finds you well in good health and high spirits. I'm writing to express my utmost appreciation for the outstanding 4th of July celebrations the City of Clearwater hosted at Coachman Park. As a resident of Tampa, I wanted to take a moment to share my positive experience and convey my deep admiration for the event. Firstly, I must commend the city on the recent updates made to Coachman Park. The park's transformation is truly remarkable, and its new appearance is nothing short of breathtaking. The meticulous planning and attention to detail were evident throughout the event, making it a joyous and memorable occasion for all attendees. My family and I thoroughly enjoyed the festivities. From the vibrant decorations to the engaging activities, everything was executed with precision and made us feel comfortable throughout the celebration. It was clear that a significant amount of thought and effort went into ensuring a fun-filled day for everyone. Moreover, I want to express my gratitude to all the individuals involved in organizing this event. The dedication and hard work of the event planners, staff, volunteers, and everyone else behind the scenes were truly commendable. Thanks to their collective efforts, my family and I experienced a profound sense of genuine and emotional patriotism that will be etched in our hearts for years to come. I firmly believe that this celebration has instilled a similar sentiment of admiration and unity in the hearts of many attendees. The vibrant atmosphere and the spirit of camaraderie were palpable, reinforcing a shared love for our great nation. In this regard, Mayor Ongst, I commend you for your role in making the event a success and for fostering a sense of community within the City of Clearwater. I emailed back and said I really had nothing to do with it, but I thank everybody who did. Once again, please accept my sincere gratitude and congratulations on a job well done. The 4th of July celebration at Coachman Park was a resounding success, and I'm certain that the entire City of Clearwater can take great satisfaction in this achievement. Anyway, that's it in a nutshell. So that was very, and I again thank the staff and everyone that was involved because they all made this happen. And after the high note, I have to, end this on a little bit of a low note. A good family friend and a member of our Marine Advisory Board, who according to Eric Gandy has been very instrumental, is in Morton Plant in severe critical condition. His name is Wade Carlisle. And I want to send our thoughts and prayers to his family and all the great people in Morton Plant taking care of him. Hopefully that he can come out of this. Great meeting. Thank you.
Brian,